Hello, everybody. It's me, Shane. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. What I'm about to do, this is something that I've been wanting to do for like the longest time. Ever since I saw Jack Edwards do this. Currently, I'm in my historical phase romance. Historical phase romance. I'm in my historical romance phase. But I want to take a break because romance books are boring me. And I want to dive into books that are not romance from what I know. If you know something about me, when it comes to books, I actually don't read the blurbs. I feel like it ruins the book. I like to plunge in, head in first. I prefer no context. I want to unravel the story as it goes. Today, I'm gonna read the first lines of a few books that I have in here lined up that are not romance and that I will read hopefully next week or after March. And let's see if I'll be one immediately. There were books in the past that just I can tell by the first chapter that I would enjoy it, that it will be a 5 out of 5 stars. But there are but it's come so rarely. Okay, I'm not great at reading audibly, so bear with me, but I will try to read it to you guys, as you go along. Okay, so I'm gonna start with lessons in chemistry. I saw this because this was part of the best books last year. That's the only thing I know about it, and it's a women's fiction. Yes. Okay, so back in 1961, when women wore shirtwaist dresses and joined garden clubs and drove legions of children around in seatbeltless cars without giving it a second thought, back before anyone knew there'd even be a 60s movement, much less one that its participants would spend the next 60 years chronicling back when the big wars were over and the secret wars had just begun and people were starting to think fresh and believe everything was possible. The 30-year-old mother of Madeline Zott rose before dawn every morning and felt certain of just one thing: her life was over. Despite that certainty, she made her way to the lab to pack her daughter's lunch. Fuel for learning, Elizabeth Zott wrote on a small slip of paper before tucking it in her daughter's lunchbox. Then she paused. Most young children can't read, and if they can, it's mostly like dog and go. But Madeline had been reading since age 3 and now at age 5 was already through most of Dickens. Madeline was that kind of child, that the kind who could hum a Bach concerto and but couldn't tie her own shoes, who could explain the Earth's rotation but stumbled at tic-tac-toe. And that was the problem because while musical prodigies are always celebrated, early readers aren't. And that's because early readers are only good at something others will be eventually good at. So being first isn't special, it's just annoying. I like it. I like it. I feel like I'm gonna enjoy this when I do finally read this a few weeks from now. Hopefully it will be empowering to read and just encouraging and just a breath of fresh air from all just the romance and okay, next book is Sweet Bean Paste. This was recommended to me by two friends of mine. And I remember my other friend, she told me that she cried after reading this, and the other one, she did not cry. So I don't know what to expect. This is a sad story, but I know there's a movie adaptation for this one. But yeah, let's see. Okay, chapter 1. A sweetly scented breeze blew along cherry blossom streets, and Taro stood over a hot griddle inside the Dora Haru shop, as he did all day every day, cooking pancakes for his dorayaki. Cherry Blossom Street was a run-down commercial strip in a depressed part of town, a street more notable for empty shops than the cherry trees planted sparsely on either side. Today, however, perhaps because the flowers were in full bloom, there were more people than usual. Sentaro looked up to see an elderly lady in a white hat standing on the roadside, but immediately turned back to the bowl of batter he was mixing. He assumed she was looking at the billowing. He assumed she was looking at the billowing cloud of cherry blossom on the tree outside the shop. When he next looked up, however, she was still there. And it wasn't the flowers, but rather Sentaro himself that she seemed to be observing. He nodded automatically in greeting. The woman smiled stiffly and shuffled closer. Sentaro recognized her face. She had been at the shop a few days earlier. About this, she said, raising her hand with a slow, deliberate motion to point at the help wanted notice taped to the window. Do you really mean age is no object? Sentaro paused in his work. He noticed that her fingers were bent like hooks. Got someone in mind? A grandchild, perhaps? The wind blinked one eye. A gentle gust of wind shook the tree, setting adrift petals that wafted through the open window to land on the griddle. She leaned. I wonder if I could apply. Pardon? She pointed to herself. Can I apply? I always wanted a job like this. It will be heartwarming, this book. I am a sucker. I have a weakness for old people. Even if they're mean or cranky. And yeah, I feel like I'll just be touched about this. I might even cry. Depends on how the story will go. Okay, next would be As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. A lot of people cried in this book. If I remember, I think I did read a part of the blurb for this one, and this is related to the war in Syria. Chapter 1. Three shriveled lemons and a plastic bag of pita bread that's more dry than moldy sit next to one another. That's all this supermarket has to offer. I stare with tired eyes before picking them up, my bones aching with every movement. I stroll around the dusty, empty aisles once more, hoping maybe I missed something. But all I'm met with is a strong sense of nostalgia. The days when my brother and I would rush into the supermarket after school and fill our arms with bags of chips and gummy bears. This makes me think of Mama and the way she would shake her head, trying not to smile at her red faced, starry eyed children, trying their best to hide the spoils of war in their backpacks. She'd brush her hair, I shake my head. Stop. When the aisles proved to be truly empty, I trudged to the counter to pay for the lemons and bread with Baba's savings. From whatever he was able to withdraw before that fateful day, the owner, a bald old man in his 60s, gives me a sympathetic smile before returning my change. Outside the supermarket, a desolate picture greets me. I don't recoil. Used to the horror, but it amplifies the anguish in my heart. Cracked road, the asphalt reduced to rubble, gray buildings hollowed and decaying as the elements tried to finish what the military's bombs started. Utter and absolute destruction. The sun has been slowly melting away the remains of winter, but the cold is still here. Spring, the symbol of new life, does not extend to worn out Syria. Least of all, my city, Homs, misery reigns strong in the dead, heavy branches and rubble, thwarted only by the hope in people's hearts. The sun hangs low in the sky, beginning the process of bidding us farewell, the colors slowly changing from orange to heavy blue. I murmur, daisies, 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 sweet smelling daisies. For 17 years, Holmes raised me and cultivated my dreams, graduated from university with a high GPA, secured a great position at the Zaytuna Hospital as their pharmacist, and finally be able to travel outside of Syria and see the world. But only one of those dreams has come true and not in the way I thought it would. That was heavy, but it's good. I love the writing, and I'm excited to learn about the story of this one. And I think it will bring closer to home since I think the person that's talking is a medical professional. Anyways, hopefully the next one is on a lighter note. But the next book would be one of the best books last year, if not the best for some people. And this is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And we'll see. Okay, I have no idea what this is about. No idea. I just know this is like one of the best books last year. That might make me seem shallow. And I probably am. But we'll see. Okay, chapter 1, Sick Kids. Before Mazer invented himself as Mazer, he was Samson Mazer. And before he was Samson Mazer, he was Samson Masur. A change of two letters that transformed him from a nice, ostensibly Jewish boy to a professional builder of worlds. And for most of his youth, he was Sam, S-A-M, on the Hall of Fame of his grandfather's Donkey Kong machine, but mainly Sam. On a late December afternoon in the waning 20th century, Sam exited the subway car and found the artery to the escalator clogged by an inert mass of people who were gaping at the station advertisement. Sam was late. He had a meeting with his academic advisor that he had been postponing for over a month, but that everyone agreed absolutely needed to happen before winter break. Sam didn't care for crowds, being in them, or whatever foolishness that they tended to enjoy en masse. But this crowd would not be avoided. He would have to force his way through it if he were to be delivered to the above ground world. Sam wore an elephantine navy wool peacoat that he had inherited from his roommate Marks, who had bought it freshman year from the Army Navy surplus store in town. Marks had left it molder Okay, sorry. Marks had left it moldering in his plastic shopping bag just short an entire semester before Sam asked if he might borrow it. That winter had been unrelenting, and it was an April nor'easter. April, what madness! These Massachusetts winters that finally wore Sam's pride down enough to ask Marks for the forgotten coat. Sam pretended that he liked the style of it, and Mark said that Sam might as well take it, which is what Sam knew he would say. Like most things purchased from the Army Navy surplus store, the coat emanated mold dust and perspiration of dead boys, and Sam tried not to speculate why the garment had been surplus. But the coat was far warmer than the windbreaker he had bought from California his freshman year. He also believed that the large coat worked to conceal his size. The coat, its ridiculous scale, only made him look smaller and more childlike. That is to say, Sam Masur, at age 21, did not have a build for pushing and shoving, and so as much as possible, he weaved through the crowd, feeling somewhat like the doomed amphibian from the video game Frogger. He found himself uttering a series of excuse me's that he did not mean. A truly magnificent thing about the way the brain was coded, Sam thought, was it could say excuse me while meaning screw you. Unless they were unreliable or clearly established as lunatics or scoundrels, characters in novels, movies, and games were meant to be taken at face value, the totality of what they did or what they said. But people, the ordinary, the decent, and basically honest, couldn't get through the day without that one indispensable bit of programming that allowed you to say one thing and mean, feel, and even do another. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, but I liked it. I feel like it feels like it's a slice of life kind of thing with an even comedic touch into it. I feel like it's a lighter book compared to the other one a while ago. I'm excited. These are all good books. These are so good. Like you can tell the quality of a book. You can even tell the quality of a book just by reading the first few lines, you know? Okay, so in the next book that we're gonna read, this one actually just received a movie adaptation, if I'm not mistaken. And this one is a memoir. This is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zonner. I have no idea what this is about, but I do know that a lot of people cried when they read this. So, chapter 1. Ever since my mom died, I cry in H Mart. H Mart is a supermarket chain that specializes in Asian food. The H stands for Han A Room, a Korean phrase that roughly translates to one arm full of groceries. H H Mart is where parachute kids flock to find the brand of instant noodles that reminds them of home. It's where Korean families buy rice cakes to make tteokguk, the beef and rice cake soup that brings in New Year. That brings in the new year. It's the only place where you sorry. It's the only place where you can find a giant vat of peeled garlic because it's the only place that truly understands how much garlic you'll need for the kind of food your people eat. H Mart is freedom from the single aisle ethnic section in regular grocery stores. They don't prop Goya beans next to bottles of sriracha here. Instead, you'll likely find me crying by the bunch on refrigerators, remembering the taste of my mom's soy sauce eggs and cold radish soup, or in the freezer section, holding a stack of dumpling skins, thinking of all the hours that mom and I spent at the kitchen table folding minced pork and chives into thin dough, stopping near the dry goods, asking myself, am I even Korean anymore if there's no one left to call and ask which brand of seaweed we used to buy? This is very family oriented. Okay, so this will be quite emotional. For feeling ko lang. No, I think this will be quite emotional to read and heavy, not in the sense of heavy that there's so much emotional turmoil, but heavy with just because of grief, grief and reminiscing and allowing yourself to heal and probably maybe go through the process of losing a loved one, especially someone so close to you like a mom. So I don't know. It depends on my emotional capabilities and emotional threshold if I will cry. So next is Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is actually a YA novel, and this is part of a series, if I'm not mistaken. I think the girl here, the main lead here, she traverses through the conflicts and maybe coming to terms with what if she's not attracted to anybody? Like, what if there's just no such feelings? And okay, last chance. There were literally three separate couples sitting around the fire making out like some sort of organized kissing orgy, and half of me was like, ew, and the other half was like, wow, I sure do wish that was me. To be fair, it's probably what I should have expected from our after party. I don't go to parties very often. I hadn't been aware this actually was the culture. So sorry for the noise, the background noise. Hopefully you're not hearing that. I retreated from the fire pit and headed back towards Hattie Jorgensen's giant country house, holding up my prom dress in one hand so I didn't trip and drop Pip message. Georgia War. I could not approach the fire and retrieve marshmallows because there were people kissing around it. Felipa Quintana. How could you betray and disappoint me like this, Georgia? Georgia War, do you still love me or is this the end? When I entered the kitchen and located Pip, she was leaning against a corner cupboard with a plastic cup full of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. Her tie was half tucked into her shirt pocket, her burgundy velvet blazer was now unbuttoned, and her short curls were fluffy and loose, no doubt due to all the dancing at prom. You okay? I asked. Might be a tad drunk, she said. Her tortoise shell her tortoise shell glasses slipping down her nose, and also I do effing love you. More than marshmallows, how could you ask me to make such a choice? I'd only had ever had a crush on one person. His name was Tommy. He was the hot boy of our school year, the one who could actually have been a model if he'd wanted. He was tall and skinny and conventionally attractive in Timothée Chalamet sort of way. Though I didn't really understand why everyone was in love with Timothée Chalamet, I had a theory that a lot of people's celebrities' crushes were fake just to fit in. Lamaw. I feel like there will be a hint of romance in here. It's still categorized in the romance section, but I feel like it will be funny. And also just probably relatable. I think it also allows people to see that there are main characters like this, that they also might feel something like this, that they're not attracted to anybody and they feel like there's something wrong about that. But there's really nothing wrong about that, you know? It's not your fault that you're not attracted to anyone. Like, why should you force it? I'll tell my thoughts after I read the book, and I feel like there will be so much conversation or so much thoughts that I want to process with you guys. Now, the next book is A Man Called Ove. This was fairly popular like 2 years ago, and a lot of people also cried in this book. Okay, so let's see. Ove is 59. He drives Saab. He's the kind of man who points at people he doesn't like the look of as if they were burglars, and his forefinger is a policeman's flashlight. He stands at the counter of a shop where owners of Japanese cars come to purchase white cables. Ove eyes the sales assistant for a long time before shaking a medium-sized white box at him. So this is one of those OPADs, is it? He demands. The assistant young man with a single-digit body mass index looks ill at ease. He visibly struggles to control his urge to snatch the box out of Ove's hands. Yes, exactly, an iPad. Do you think you could stop shaking it like that? Ove gives the box a skeptical glance as if it's a highly dubious sort of box. A box that rides a scooter and wears tracksuit pants and just called Ove my friend before offering to sell him a watch. I see. So it's a computer, yes? The sales assistant nods, then hesitates and quickly shakes his head. Yes, or what I mean is, it's an iPad. Some people call it a tablet, and others call it a surfing device. There are different ways of looking at it. Ove looks at the sales assistant as if he has just spoken backwards before shaking the box again. But is it good, this thing? The assistant nods confusedly. Yes, or how do you mean? Ove sighs and starts talking slowly, articulating his words as if the only problem here is his adversary's impaired hearing. Is it good? Is it a good computer? The assistant scratches his chin. I mean, yeah, it's really good, but it depends what sort of computer you want. Ove glares at him. I want a computer, a normal bloody computer. Okay. Okay, I thought this would start very sadly, or very sympathetically, but no, it's quite witty, it's quite comical. This is normal with old people. That's why it's funny because you actually also just experience this with your relatives and with your family members. So yeah, I enjoyed it. And yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited. I can't wait to read that. Okay, so now let's go to the books that I have with me today in here. We have Catcher in the Rye and Piranesi. Piranesi is actually also one of the best books 2021. And Catcher in the Rye, it's a classic for most people. It's some people's red flag book, and it's some people's favorite book. And yeah, we'll see. From what I know with Catcher in the Rye, it's a really negative book. From what I know, the main character rants a lot, and you get to see his or her thoughts. Yeah, basically, you peer into his brain. That's the POV for this one. Chapter 1. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me. And all that David Copperfield kind of crap, but I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. In the first place, that stuff bores me. In the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all. I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. I mean, that's all I told DB about, and he's my brother. He's in Hollywood, that isn't too far from this crummy place, and he and he comes over and visits me practically every weekend. He's going to drive me home when I go home next month, maybe. He just got a Jaguar, one of those little English jobs that can do 200 miles an hour. It cost him damn near $4,000. He's got a whole lot of dough now. He didn't used to. He used to be just a regular writer when he was home. He wrote this terrific book of short stories, The Secret Goldfish, in case you never heard of him. The best one in it was The Secret Goldfish. It was about this little kid that wouldn't let anybody look at his goldfish because he'd bought it with his own money. It killed me. Now he's out in Hollywood, DB being a prostitute. If there's one thing I hate, it's the movies. Don't even mention them to me. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Probably cautioning myself to not be too affected with the emotions and with the thoughts. I tend to really wallow in what I read because it's something that I am consuming. So, yeah, hopefully I will enjoy that. And the next book would be Piranesi. So, let's start. And I think this is the first book that I'm diving into with a Greek mythology touch. This is a fantasy book, and I'm excited because there's so much praises with this book. Okay. So when the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule, entry for the first day of the fifth month in the year the albatross came to the southwestern halls. When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of three tides. This is something that happens only once every 8 years. The ninth vestibule is remarkable for the ninth vestibule is remarkable for the three great staircases it contains. Its walls are lined with marble statues, hundreds upon hundreds of them, tier upon tier, rising into the distant heights. I climbed up the western wall until I reached the statue of a woman carrying a beehive 15 meters above the pavement. The woman is 2 or 3 times my own height, and the beehive is covered with marble bees the size of my thumb. One bee, this always gives me a slight sensation of queasiness, crawls over her left eye. I squeezed myself into the woman's niche and waited until I heard the tides roaring in the lower halls and felt the walls vibrating with the force of what was about to happen. It gives magical vibes. That's the only thing I can say from the few lines that I read. Is it the labyrinth of a house? We will see. Yeah, that's it actually. Those are all the books that I'm planning to read in the next few weeks when I do undergo my romance break. And the one I'm most excited about would be A Man Called Ove, Loveless, and Lessons in Chemistry, definitely. And also As Long as the Lemon Tree Grows. Did hope you enjoy. I feel like I'm the only one who enjoyed this. This video, but I still hope that you were also able to be interested in the books that I am about to read next time. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next week or next time. Goodbye.